Hello! This video is going to be a review, or more a huge rant about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Disclaimer, I love Harry Potter, okay? I love Harry Potter. This is not a video slating Harry Potter. I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. I collect the merch for Harry Potter. I live and breathe Harry Potter, really. I have done for quite a while. So before we even say anything else, this video is going to contain spoilers. It's going to contain spoilers about the series if you haven't read the series, and it's going to definitely contain spoilers about the Cursed Child. So if you want to read the original book series and or The Cursed Child, don't watch this video if you don't want to know spoilers. So now that's out of the way, I knew the storyline for Cursed Child before the play came out. I had read the spoilers that people had posted after they'd seen parts 1 and 2 of Cursed Child. After they'd seen part 1, they posted the reviews for part 1, and after they'd seen part 2, they posted the reviews for part 2. And there was a little gap in between, so I read the part 1 reviews and we had to wait a while for the part 2, and I say we because it was me and my friend. Before the play was announced and, when it was taking place that it would be done in the West End, I was very skeptical when I'd heard that there was a play coming out, because I didn't know what a story would be like, and I didn't understand where it would go, and I didn't really want to know about Harry's children. I feel like it's just kind of milking it. So this play came out and I was kind of interested. The idea of Harry Potter on the stage was like really cool. Like I thought, how are they going to pull that together, and what are the effects going to be like, and I'd love to see magic performed on a stage. So I went ahead and read the storyline for part 1. I think we read like a couple of reviews, and we read the first review, and it was just like, this is so ridiculous. Like, what even? What? This doesn't make sense. There was a few like official things that had announced what we know about Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, like the official sites that didn't contain the storyline giveaway, and they weren't so bad. It was things like meet the Weasley Grangers and Hermione's now Minister for Magic and things like that. So we read these reviews, we searched around, and then like some of them are the same reviews, and I remember just getting really angry. Like, what is this? Like, this can't be real. Me and my friend were like, this really can't be real. And it's like, well, how are there several different people posting the same stuff? When part 2 came out, we then read the storylines for that people have posted. The longer this went on, the more of the storyline was just matching. Like, everybody who had posted basically the same thing. And it's like, well, hang on a second, this can't be fake, because how can everybody post the same thing if it's fake? I went through this stage of being really angry that Harry Potter was basically ruined, to actually just finding the whole thing hilarious. The more I read it, the more hilarious it was, and it was kind of this thing where it was like, it's so ridiculous that it can't be a lie. Like, nobody could make that up. Like, nobody could guess that or make that up. Nobody could actually make up the storyline for Cursed Child. I then went through a denial phase. So when the play came out, I was like, well, maybe it is all just a big joke, and somehow everybody's posting the same rubbish and no one's telling the truth. So I then went and bought the book. I was in Sainsbury's and I ran to the Cursed Child stand, picked up the book. As soon as I opened it, I knew from the first page that it was true. All of it was the truth. Now, this is the best, worst book I have ever read. It's funny because it fails so badly. If you don't know the storyline, please Google it, because it's too complicated and long and ridiculous for me to brief. But the blueprint of the storyline is time travel. Harry's son goes back in time to save Cedric Diggory, which ends up in this whole mess involving time turners and Voldemort having a daughter. And yeah, like I said, Google it, read the storyline, come back, and then watch this video. And then maybe even read the play, borrow it from the library. You might like it, but as you can probably tell, I didn't. So let's get down to the actual reviewing the play. The character development is poor. I say development, but the characters don't develop, and neither are they the same characters from the original book series. The characters in Cursed Child are not a continuation of the characters that you know from Harry Potter. It's just a mess. Harry is basically this huge asshole, and I don't know why. Like, Harry wasn't ever one of my favourite characters. I empathised with him, but there were just characters I liked better. Harry had this tendency to be sort of annoying and yeah, in the wrong sometimes, but I kind of feel like that's understandable. He was locked in a cupboard for a lot of his life. He was treated like rubbish by his aunt and uncle. And then he goes to school to find out that everybody knows who he is because basically this dark wizard killed his parents, and then a lot of people just hate him for being him for no valid reason. And then he finds out that it's his responsibility to kill this wizard that killed his parents. So yeah, it was understandable that he was a bit annoying sometimes. I think if you really want to read Harry at his worst, read The Order of the Phoenix. So yeah, everybody takes everything out on Harry, but Harry was never as much of an asshole as he is in The Cursed Child. Never. And I don't think it's in his character to be like that at all. This isn't angsty teenage Harry. This is just Harry being awful. Harry threatens Professor McGonagall with the might of the Ministry after in book 7 he tortures a Carrow for spitting in McGonagall's face. Because, you know, he respected McGonagall. It is not in Harry's character to threaten McGonagall. He wouldn't do that. And he tells his own son that he wishes they weren't related, which Harry might not be able to cope with a lot of things like work or maybe even his own relationships, you know, like with Ginny, after everything that happened to him. It's kind of realistic that he might not be able to cope, but out of anything, I really don't think he would be a bad father. He knows what it's like to not have parents. He knows what it's like to be treated badly, and I do not think he would be a bad father. I actually think he would be a really good father. They ruined Harry. Ron is an extension of the twins, but especially Fred. George is mentioned, but in passing by other characters. He's not really a thing in the book. Ron isn't in character. I think he's in character once throughout the book, and that is when he basically calls Malfoy out for saying something to Hermione. I can't remember what it was right now, but he calls Malfoy out for saying, I know Harry's buddies with you, but the way you've treated my wife is unacceptable," or something along those lines. And that's the only time when I thought, yeah, that is Ron. But for the rest of the time, Ron isn't in character. He's an idiot. He's not taken seriously. He's made out to be some big joke, like a comic relief character, a bit on the side. He's just there. He's not funny. One thing about Ron was that I found him funny. I thought he was funny, and he has no depth. I can't believe they ruined Ron, because Ron is one of my favourite characters, and I don't know why he seems to think he's the new Fred. As far as I could work out, he worked for George to help him because he loved the joke shop, but Cursed Child makes out like he owned the joke shop and he founded it, and that really isn't the case. I love Ron for being Ron. I don't love Ron for turning into Fred. Do you know what I mean? I don't want Ron to be Fred. I loved Fred for being Fred and Ron for being Ron. Ron wouldn't become Fred. Realistically, he's not going to become Fred because Fred's dead. It's almost as if they thought, well, we've killed Fred, so let's reintroduce him, but through Ron. Let's just make Ron Fred and George. I don't know. I don't get it. If you don't want Fred to be dead, don't kill him, but don't turn Ron into Fred. Ron had his own personality, and it was fine. Hermione. My main issue with Hermione is her portrayal in this alternate world to be alternate reality, to be this bitter, twisted up, angry spinster because she's not married to Ron in this alternate reality. And how sexist and offensive is it that without Ron's love she would be this evil bitch? Hermione is the kind of person that was very independent, and I think the book series showed that really well, that she always stood up for herself and she had her own beliefs, and she was really the feminist in Harry Potter. This idea that without Ron she's nothing is just bullshit, really. Hermione is the kind of person that would be fine with or without marriage. She would be just as lovely unmarried as she is married. To make it worse, Rose, her daughter, is horrible, and I don't understand why they've made her horrible. It's kind of a reflection of how Hermione is in her alternate life, like Rose being big-headed and saying, well, we've got like a double joint famous name, so we're gonna get have loads of friends, and she's just, I don't see the necessity for that. It is just sexist. Like, this whole play is sexist. Most of the female characters are basically not needed because all they do is supplement the main characters. They don't have any depth or any real sense of purpose. They are just there for the sake of being there because they were there in the book. Harry's son and, oh my god, Albus and Scorpius. They're not really distinct characters, but Scorpius, I feel like he has this potential to be this really good character. If it was sat down and thought about, I feel like Scorpius could really develop. Scorpius is basically this over enthusiastic, very, very childish, but kind of not childish because he doesn't act like a child, nor does he act like an adult. It's just some weird in between thing version of Draco Malfoy. And I love this idea that he's an alright child, but the way he's written just isn't feasible. They don't speak like children, but they don't speak like adults. I'm not a huge Dumbledore fan, and this is me giving an example here. But Dumbledore and like all the characters had, I think this is what made the books really stand out. All the characters had this particular way of speaking, and I think that's really fairly obvious with Dumbledore. And Cursed Child ruined Dumbledore. Like, Harry speaks to Dumbledore's portrait, and everything that made Dumbledore is gone. And Dumbledore was a really well developed character. As much as I don't like him, like, he was a very good character. I can't believe they ruined Dumbledore. The dialogue at any point between any of the characters is just ridiculous and it's not believable. It was like whoever wrote this was taking something and half their sentences came out in this big jumbled mess. It's not dialogue, it's like somebody padded out a load of pages with nonsense. As a side note, the stage directions are also pretty stupid. I'm going to find some examples for you. This is an example of a stage direction. This is chaos. This is magic. This is St. Oswald's home for old witches and wizards, and it is as wonderful as you might hope. There is suddenly total silence. Everything is instantly still and slightly depressed. The stage directions in this book are almost like somewhere between how a story would be written and how a stage direction should be written. It's almost like they didn't want to write a play, they wanted to write the story. It's almost as if they've written this play so that people who didn't see the play had a more story-based play, but the format doesn't work. Like, a stage direction is a stage direction. You either write a play or you write a story, and it doesn't work. This is another one. There's a massive smash, and the door falls off its hinges. Hagrid stands in the middle of the door. He looks at them. There's a large boom. Then there's a large crash. Dudley, Dursley, Aunt Petunia, and Uncle Vernon are cowering behind a bed.
There's a large boom. There's a massive smash, crash, ping, bang, bullet. There's a large boom. There's a massive smash, crash, ping, bang, bullet. What?
This is how stupid Scorpius really is. Like, he just, oh my god, Scorpius.
Okay, now we're on the roof of the train. It's fast. It's scary. This has been great. I feel like I've learned a lot about me. Something about you, but...
To cap it off, this is Ron now. At age, 40 something?
Hang on, let me just munch on this air. And now it's just a simple matter of, excuse me if I smell slightly of garlic.
I don't even know. It doesn't make sense. It just sounds like a kid's written it. I don't know how to review the speech. It's just ridiculous. There is nothing to say about it. It's not. Now you've had some wonderful examples of the speech. Draco Malfoy. The main issue I have with Draco Malfoy is that why is he friends with Harry, or why is it implied that him and Harry become friends in the Cursed Child? Harry would not spend most of his time with Draco Malfoy like he seems to. Like, they go through the stage of dueling each other, which I don't understand. Like, it's just, you just know it's there for the effect. In fact, most of this book is just there for the effect, for the hell of it being there. Like, it just exists just to be there. It just exists so they can make a play about Harry Potter, and I feel like they could have used any of the books to do that. And Draco Malfoy would not be friends with Harry after everything that happened, after, like, all the stuff he said about Hermione, all the stuff he did to Harry, all the stuff that happened, I don't think he would turn around and be either of them. I don't think Harry would turn around and be like, yeah, I forgive you, it's fine. I like the idea that Scorpius and Albus were friends at school and that Albus went into Slytherin, because I think that breaks this whole stigma about Slytherin. But I don't think that it would mean that Harry and Malfoy would be friends. Malfoy was horrible, and I don't think he would have changed. I think maybe it would have got as civilized as Harry saying hi to Malfoy on the street, maybe. But for the most part, none of the trio would have been friends with Malfoy. Like, not Ron, not Hermione, and not Harry. Basically, all the main characters, the ones that everybody loves, have been flipped around to be stupid, and then you've got, like, Draco Malfoy, who's actually really sensible in comparison to the rest of them. It's so annoying. Parts of the Cursed Child have potential, and this is what's frustrating, is that it does have potential, but the whole basis of the time turner thing is just stupid. Like, there were so many other things that you could have done with this. Like, a lot of the characters had so much potential, and even some of the storyline had so much potential. But I feel like this idea that she had to use time turners to make this story shows that there was never an idea for an 8th story in the first place. Like at the end of the book, things are tied up. We go through this whole ridiculous ride just for it to be fine and tied up at the end. It was a bit like Harry Potter. Harry Potter was great. Like, the whole story was great, but then you've got the epilogue and everything's tied up. You know, when society crashes like it did in Harry Potter, like Voldemort basically destroyed everything. The society went to shit, effectively. When society goes to shit, it takes years to rebuild it. Let's be honest, if things happened like they did in Harry Potter, Hogwarts has this terrible reputation by this point. There would be so many people like, shut the school down, we're not sending our kids there, like, this school has a terrible reputation, my kid's gonna die, shut it down. There would be people that didn't trust Harry. Harry would probably be sought after by some people. There would be people saying that Voldemort wasn't dead. There would be, like, rumours flying everywhere. Like, look at the last time where people thought Voldemort was dead. Well, they'd be saying, you know, well, last time we thought Voldemort was dead, so he's probably not dead this time. He's probably coming back, and like, there would be people still loyal to Voldemort. There would be people in the Ministry that were traitors. It's just not realistic. Like, a lot of Harry Potter before the ending is just quite realistic. It all fits together and it all runs smoothly, and then this just doesn't fit with any of that. When people go through, I don't know, I mean, Harry basically, his childhood was traumatic. When people go through that, let's be honest, most of these characters would have developed some mental health problems. George would have probably had severe depression and possibly attempted to kill himself, and it doesn't cover anything like that. You know, Harry would have probably had PTSD, maybe Ron and Hermione also, but especially Harry, I think. Hermione, from being tortured, probably would have suffered from something. It's all tied up. It's like, oh, everything's fine now. That's in the past. But realistically, the maths of Harry Potter imply that they had children pretty young. And how convenient that they all had children at the same age, so they could all be in the same year at Hogwarts. How convenient that none of them are suffering and that all their relationships are working out. And how convenient that all the relationships are the relationships that they had in school. So, like, you've got Harry and Ginny, who I don't think would have worked. I kind of like the idea of them because I like the fact that Albus exists, and I kind of like the fact that Albus is in Slytherin and that he's friends with Scorpius. I'll get onto that in a minute. I like that. I think that's a really good has really good potential, but I feel that, to be honest, prominently I feel like Ginny is a lesbian, or at least in the closet about it, and I feel that Harry would be too traumatized to function doing much. I feel like after all that had happened to him, he would primarily focus on his work to distract himself, but then after a while everything would catch up with him and his relationship would fall apart with Ginny, because let's be honest, Harry suddenly noticed Ginny was there, and Ginny was infatuated with him, and when you're infatuated with someone, you're not actually seeing them for them, you're seeing what you want. She didn't really fall in love with him, she was just infatuated by him, and I don't think their relationship would have lasted that long, and I don't think if they got married, they would stay married. I feel that the cursed child should have ended with them getting divorced, because you can see that Harry's and Ginny's relationship didn't function, and it was also kind of implied that Ginny and Draco had like this thing going on. Well, at least I read it like that. I also feel like it's very heteronormative. I can't believe that throughout the cursed child it was implied that, you know, Albus and Scorpius were like into each other, and at the end it sort of chickened out of putting them together. It was like, oh, Scorpius likes Rose, and Scorpius asked Rose out. Put Albus and Scorpius together. That would have been great. Like, that would have been the basis of a storyline. Like, you know, don't be with a Malfoy type thing. That would have been a good storyline. What is it with Harry Potter and being heteronormative? This story is so flawed, and not just on characterization and all that stuff. The third book covered time turners. We saw time turners, and then because they were a dangerous thing to have in a book, they got destroyed in the Order of the Phoenix. Time turners had set rules. You went back in time, and what happened, whether you went back in time or not. And this just destroyed all of those rules. This was just convenient and ridiculous. And how come Albus and Scorpius were able to go back so far that they erased Albus's existence, and then it was magically corrected? If you change so much that you actually erase your entire existence and you change everything that happened, it would be impossible then to correct it. It's like, first we're going back 5 minutes, and then now we can go back this long, and now conveniently there's another time turner and it can do this, that and the other. And it's like, no, time turners had set rules, they were set, and you can't just change it. So Delphi, why is it that Delphi exists? There are so many problems with Delphi's existence, right? Voldemort, who went out to dehumanize himself, he made himself as removed as possible from a human being so that he could claim he was this all-powerful, almighty dark wizard that would take over the world and would live forever. Voldemort, the person that killed over and over again and didn't give a shit effectively, having a kid is not feasible. There were so many issues with this. The one being that, you know, other than the fact that he doesn't want to be human, the fact that half of the reason Voldemort failed so much in Harry Potter, like with killing Harry, it was because he had such a big ego and he thought so much of himself. He basically, in book 7, got everybody to do all his work for him because he thought that he had it all sussed out, and he didn't even realise that there were 3 kids destroying parts of his soul and that he was dying. He was too stupid to realise that for a while. He was so focused on power and he was so greedy that he actually didn't do the job that he needed to do the most properly. He just left other people to it and blamed other people, and that is really flawed. But Voldemort was not stupid enough to have a kid, because the whole idea of Voldemort is that he is scared of anyone that is more powerful than him or has the potential to be more powerful than him. He wants to be the most powerful. He is not going to bring a child into the world that could potentially damage his ego. He's not going to do that. He's not going to bring a kid into the world that could potentially be more powerful than him. And how come Delphi is so powerful? Lumping her on Amos Diggory and like, this is Amos Diggory's niece. This whole idea of lumping Delphi on Amos Diggory, and then for Amos Diggory to turn around and then say that he then doesn't have a niece, that he'd been imperious. How does nobody around Amos Diggory not click in that, oh wait, Amos doesn't have a niece, he's like mad? It doesn't make any sense. It's so casual too. It's like, can you not think of any other way to introduce Delphi than to just sort of throw her onto Amos Diggory? Oh my god. The other big issue I have is, why have they gone back in time, to save Cedric? Like, what's this big thing about Cedric? I have nothing against Cedric, but I just don't understand why Cedric? Why only save Cedric? The implication that Voldemort isn't human kind of also implies that he couldn't have a child. Like, he has sort of destroyed himself so much that I don't know if it's physically possible for him to have a child. Like, he didn't even love, and I don't think Bellatrix loved him either. I think she adored him. I think she worshipped him, but I don't think she loved him. They definitely wouldn't end up having a kid. I'm not saying for 1 second that you have to be in love to have sex, but when did Voldemort ever have time for sex? Like, is that what it, like, why he had to send all these, like, people to do all his work for him? Is that what he was doing in his spare time, like, getting down, you know? I don't understand. I don't get it. It's just absolutely ludicrous. Like, Bellatrix and Voldemort, no. Just as, like, the huge thing here, like, the big red flag, why did none of the trio notice when Bellatrix was torturing Hermione that Bellatrix was pregnant? What next? I mean, the only way that I could fit this into Harry Potter was that the baby that Harry saw in his, like, dream thing with Dumbledore was actually Delphi. That it was actually Voldemort's child. Like, Harry got, I don't know, impregnated. I mean, this is just as stupid. How he got impregnated, actually, it wasn't a Horcrux, it was Delphi, and then when Voldemort Avada Kedavra'd him.
That's a baby.
And why is it that it has to be linked back to Voldemort? Like, why does the baddie in Cursed Child have to link back to Voldemort? Why couldn't J.K. Rowling have been more creative and said, like, well, let's have a new baddie, but maybe it isn't a baddie that wants to take over the world, maybe it's just something else, like, not everybody is a power maniac. Not everybody is like why does it always why did it have to go back to Voldemort? Like, jump back to Voldemort. Let's jump back to Time Turners and Voldemort. Like, let's bring Voldemort back. Like, no, there's so much more that you could write about other than baddies and other than, like, every baddie is linked to or comes back to Voldemort. Like, there are so many bad people that aren't trying to take over the world effectively, is what I'm saying. It's so stupid that Delphi doesn't even make sense. Like, at the end, Harry transfigures into Voldemort, which goes against everything that Harry Potter ever said. Like, you know, in the Chamber of Secrets, where they spend however long it is creating Polyjuice Potion, and, you know, Polyjuice Potion is this thing throughout the book. Well, now they can suddenly transfigure into a dark wizard. Like, why did this never happen before? Why was this never a thing before Cursed Child? That, oh wait, we can suddenly transfigure into Voldemort. Like, great idea. The Fallen 50. Like, this idea that 50 people died in the Battle of Hogwarts. Like, Hogwarts had hundreds of students, and I get that thousands maybe. And I totally understand that, yeah, the Slytherins didn't fight. But that's just a sort of general assumption. You don't know that some Slytherins didn't stay back. Like, yeah, we're gonna defend ourselves, or we've got a reason to be here. You don't know that every Slytherin left the school. You've also got all the 3 other houses, and I know it was people of age that fought, but you've got the Order, probably, like, other people who came into the castle to fight that weren't members of the Order. You've got, like, magical creatures fighting, and only 50 people died. Like, and I'm assuming it is 50 good people. Hundreds of people would have died. Like, 50. How convenient. What a nice round, like, easy to roll off the tongue phrase of the Fallen 50. Like, why not the Fallen 296.5? Who knows? Like, you've got a few people who, without body parts, it can be 0.5. You don't know. Just Fallen 50. Why? This whole thing with this blanket, this whole moldy blanket thing, that this is like an inside joke now with me and my friends. You know how Albus and Scorpius burn a message onto this blanket that Harry gave Scorpius, that Harry was wrapped in as a baby when he went to the Dursleys. Well, this idea that Petunia has been keeping it all these years. Like, why was she keeping it all these years? Why was it even sentimental to her? She effectively hated Harry. I don't even understand why this blanket is just dropped into the story, and then you've got this stupid dialogue between Harry and Albus, like, moldy blanket, what do I want of a moldy blanket? It's so stupid. It's got to be my favourite part of that entire play. I know it's probably been said, like, so many times before, and everybody said this, but this play is just, it's like some crazy fanfiction, except fanfiction would imply that it is actually better than this play, because most fan fictions are better than that. That was possibly the longest video I've ever done, and it's probably going to go up in 2 parts. I'm literally filming this after editing, and wow. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry if you don't like Harry Potter, but I do, and I intend to put up videos that I want to put up, as well as mental health, because focusing on mental health on the time can be kind of draining. I will see you in my next video. If you like this video, please subscribe. Bye.